Let's rock, baby.
2001 is the year that I got a PlayStation 2, roughly 1 year after its release date, and the game that I purchased with it? Capcom's Devil May Cry. Having already played through Resident Evils 1 through 3, the aesthetics of Devil May Cry that I had spied earlier in several video game magazines reminded me a lot of the Resident Evil series. I couldn't resist. But once I got home and popped the disc in, I simply could not get into it, and it ended up sitting on a shelf untouched for several years. I eventually gave it another shot, and the same thing. Just wasn't feeling it. Maybe I was expecting it to be more like Resident Evil? I don't know. But considering that the game had originally been conceived as the fourth installment in Capcom's renowned zombie franchise, it should have been right up my alley. It wasn't until about 5 years ago when Capcom had an irresistibly cheap sale for the Devil May Cry HD collection in the PlayStation Store that I had finally decided to give the original one last shot. I didn't have any issues getting immersed this time, so this is the version that I'll be covering today. The story begins with our protagonist Dante sitting in the office of his detective agency, aptly named Devil May Cry, when a mysterious woman enters seemingly familiar with Dante's past.
You're the man who lost a mother and a brother to evil 20 years ago. The son of the legendary Dark Knight Sparta, Mr. Dante.
She tests Dante's power and is immediately impressed after he easily thwarts her attacks.
Time to go to work, guys.
The evil demon Mundus, who is responsible for Dante's mother and brother's deaths, is planning to open the gates to the underworld on Malay Island. This is where Dante's adventure begins. As Dante steps into an enormous castle, the similarities to Resident Evil are immediately evident. While the screen does scroll along with Dante's movements, Devil May Cry also sports fixed camera angles to give the game a creepier setting. I'm not necessarily a fan of this, especially when jumping is involved. We'll delve into this a bit deeper later on. Dante is armed with the sword and his signature pistols, Ebony and Ivory. His blade and firearms can be used in tandem, translating into some slick combos. You can juggle baddies, and with unlimited ammo, you can even at times attack safely from afar, although the pistols are generally weak. New upgraded weapons are collected and interchangeable as the game advances later on. Red orbs are collected from a myriad of sources and have several uses, such as opening doors sealed by spirits and currency, which can be exchanged for invaluable goods and power-ups. Blue orbs are also scattered throughout, needing 4 pieces to complete, which in turn increases your life bar. Think of it as collecting pieces of heart to complete a heart container. Most of these are hidden and will require some effort to search and locate. Red orbs are often concealed in a similar manner, but missing a few hidden ones won't be anything to fret over. Devil May Cry's stages are set up as missions where each has an objective to overcome, which is detailed by a title card introducing the level. Some missions can be a bit lengthy, while others can be finished within a matter of minutes. You will, of course, encounter a deluge of fiendish ghouls along the way, impeding your advancement throughout the castle. Demonic marionettes suspended by cords drop from the ceiling, shadow wolves tear through Dante like parchment paper, the very embodiment of mortal dissolution, death scythes, bemoan chilling cackles, and what the hell is this thing?
One ugly motherfucker.
A number of bosses also inhabit the castle and its grounds, often requiring several battles to vanquish, which at times can feel a bit tedious and redundant. At least for me anyway. I got sick to fucking death of this boss called Nightmare. Yeah, no kidding. Not because he's too difficult, but because the fights against him can be downright annoying. And speaking of difficulty, it seems to be a bit unbalanced and frankly all over the place. Some enemies can be downright brutal until you finally figure out their patterns, as it should be, while at other times, simply walking up to monstrosities and spamming the sword attack will easily get the job done without breaking a sweat. And as I had mentioned before, some of the missions are extremely short, and once you finish some of them, you'll think to yourself, is that it? But for the more daunting sections of the game, Dante does have a few tricks up his sleeve. You can enable the Devil Trigger, which transforms Dante into a demonic entity, increasing his speed, strength, and attacks. The Devil Trigger does run on a limited meter, which can be replenished by simply attacking more foes, and can also be increased by purchasing more Devil Trigger gauges with red orbs. Items, new abilities, and sword upgrades can be bought at shops scattered throughout, and also before the start of each mission. Having a cache of items at your disposal such as Vital and Devil Stars, which replenish health and the Devil Trigger gauges respectively, and the Untouchable, which not only grants you temporary invincibility, but also refills your Devil Trigger, are crucial in order to stay alive. Yellow orbs can also be found and purchased and serve as extra lives, which restart you from a checkpoint minus any items you may have used since your last save. And yes, despite being able to save the game after completing each mission, if you run out of yellow orbs, the game is over and you'll have to restart all over from the beginning. Think of them as limited continues. Unless I had already reached a checkpoint far into a mission, once I died, I would just reset the game and restart from my last save to preserve lives. Can't say that I'm a big fan of games that uses this mechanic. The Mccobb Environment more than makes up for this though, as the castle on Malay Island is creepier than John Wayne Gacy's crawl space. The castle is dark and dreary, festooned with Gothic imagery, which was actually influenced by European castles, which the developers visited and photographed to be used as a template. Insane amounts of detail cover just about every inch of the game, and it definitely will take several playthroughs to absorb it all. And even then you're sure to miss a few things. The walls in this dungeon have what looks like to be the graphics skull engraved into it. The sunken ship still contains the cadaver of the captain who went down with it.
Arg, I'm Captain Bligh. You landlubbers had better stay away from the docks, or else there'll be hell to pay.
And this symbol on the floor totally reminds me of the Morbid Angel logo. And check out this awesome sunset. Now that's some cool shit. While the HD version looks pretty good compared to the original, the menus are in standard definition, which isn't that big of a deal, but unfortunately, the same can't be said for the full motion video cutscenes. Woof! Probably my biggest gripe though are the fixed camera angles. While yes, it's not that difficult to navigate, especially if you're familiar with Resident Evil or Onimusha Warlords, it can cause a whole lot of aggravation. Nothing's more frustrating than fighting a boss when all of a sudden the angle changes suddenly, blocking your view to the point where you can't accurately land blows, except maybe trying to jump up a wall to grab an item. Oops, let's try that again. Damn it! Third time's a charm. Ah, the fuck with this! I actually still have issues making jumps in 3D platformers to this day, even with modern games. The lack of depth perception always screws with me, and falling occasionally is imminent. Thankfully, Dante has a wall jump, and later a double jump to make his airborne tactics a little less annoying. With a total of 23 stages, Devil May Cry has a lot to offer. The divergence of missions is really appealing, as some take place underwater where Dante has to swim, and even a flying stage reminiscent of Panzer Dragoon, and on top of that, there are hidden secret missions. Often hidden in doors or areas that can be retraced from previous levels, the secret missions also have specific objectives to conquer. Fail to do so, and you'll have to try again. Some are really easy, while others are damn near impossible. The game does offer a map to make getting around less disorienting, but honestly, I didn't use it even once while capturing footage, and I'm showing it here just for the sake of this review. I had no problem whatsoever finding my way around the castle, but for those of you who lack good sense of direction, the map is an integral tool. Use it. Devil May Cry is a friggin' blast. Sure, it has a few quirks here and there, but the fast-paced action, fluid combat, and combos make this one pretty addictive. I played through it 3 times in a row to get footage for this video. It was that hard to put down. Capcom has a real knack for making me want to immediately replay their games after completing them. That's pretty badass. The dark environment is right in my wheelhouse too, with a soundtrack to match, and combine that with a plethora of vile beasts to dispose of, Devil May Cry is loads of fun. It may take time to grow on you as it did with me, but give it a chance, or 3, and I'll wager that you too will be eager to decimate demons with bells on.
Jackpot.